think I'm done with that.
No, I probably
Okay.
I don't want any seasons that because I can't.
Oops. Janae, what chapters are in Unit 1? Let's see. Chapter 1 is, let me see. Hang on, let me look at it. I don't know off the top of my head. Chapter 1 is, we've only been in chapter 1 so far. And chapter 2, I think it's just 1 and 2. But we've been kind of going pretty slowly because second semester is longer than first semester. And if you like look at your second semester textbook, it looks like this. There's like a lot of this, the groundwork we've already done with morality. So like they have a chapter on human dignity, but we don't have to do that because we already did it in morality. Yeah, it's in chapter 1. So yeah, just in chapter 1. In this book, it's very colorful and the font is big. Last semester, they didn't give me a copy of your student text. In my teacher text, the font was so small. It was so annoying. Okay, so I guess Williams, are you still working on that survey? Yeah, I know. Yeah, if it's something that like you really don't think is that important, you can just kind of skip it or put not applicable. If it asks a question you want to give feedback on, go ahead and do so. So while you are working on that, we'll pray. And for prayer, the lesson will be in the Pear Deck, but there's a link here to quotes from the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial. And for the warm-up, you can pick, the idea would be to pick your favorite quote and just say why you liked it. Because Martin Luther King Jr. was a great orator and writer, so he has a lot of beautiful quotes. And you can kind of look at the memorial. The memorials are all closed right now, but I haven't seen this one yet. I haven't been to DC in many years. So we'll do that for prayer, and then we'll have a little lesson in the Pear Deck. And the topic is charity and justice. And for homework, there's no written homework. It's just to read pages 37 through 42, the scriptural roots of justice. So, and actually, I think that might be chapter 3. Is it? No, it's still chapter 2. And then we'll have a vocabulary quiz upcoming. And if you click on this, it's just a list of the vocab. And then there's key concepts. And hang on. And then this is just a little Kahoot on justice. We didn't have time to play it last time, so I just made it a challenge you could play on your own. So that's what we're doing today. I'll give you time to do that survey. Oh, I forgot to unmute the board for the people in class. Let me turn one of the lights off. That's all right. Why is it so blurry? Let's see here. Okay, I was gonna do something and I forgot what I was gonna do. Are you still working on that thing? No. Okay. Let's see. At home, are you still working on that survey? Let's say. See. When is the vocab quiz? Will it be open note? I was gonna it'll be either, well, maybe I'll just decide to do it next week. I wanted to talk to Sister and Mrs. Owens first to see when they were giving it. But yeah, it'll be open note because if you're at home, there's really no way to know whether or not you're using your stuff. So might as well just make it open note. I mean, this experience of teaching during the pandemic, like certain things that teachers always like, before I never would have really given an open note test. And now going through this, I'm like, I kind of think to myself, well, why not? Like, I mean, at least you'd have the right answer. Isn't that the point at the end of the day? Like, I kind of, I don't know. It's been interesting. I'm thinking of writing an article about like things that I always did as a teacher before that now I'm realizing were just dumb. And why did I ever do it that way? Yeah. There's like I follow a bunch of teacher thingies on Twitter, and one lady who's a teacher, she has a like a website and a blog called Cult of Pedagogy, and I was like thinking of submitting an article for her, or maybe I don't know. I have to find who I would want to submit it to, but yeah. So Paige, don't worry about the quiz. Let's just all decide to do it next week. Does that sound good? So. And again, there is a list here of the vocab, and I'll make a Quizlet and a Kahoot for the quiz itself as well. Yeah. So for prayer, I have one of my favorite quotes from Martin Luther King Jr., and then I have a song for reflection. But for like the warm up, I wanted you guys to, again, and I'm not sure how well this will work in the Pear Deck, so I have the link here. So if you click on that, it takes you to the website for the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial in Washington, D.C. And it has, if you've been to Washington, a lot of the memorials have quotes from the people they were made for. Like if you go to the FDR Memorial, there's all these quotes. You guys want to hear a crazy story? So when I was in college, I did an internship in Washington, D.C. And one night, all the interns, we all thought it would be fun to go to see the memorials lit up at night. So we took the train from Georgetown to the mall, and we were like, DC shuts down at night. There's nothing to do at night in DC. So we didn't like plan for the idea that we were just going to take a cab back. We couldn't find any cabs, and I had to go to the bathroom so bad. And so none of the bathrooms are open because it's 10 o'clock at night. And so I was like, I don't know what to do. So I basically just went in the bushes behind the FDR memorial. And so like my friends were waiting for me, and then I go find them, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so terrible. I'm such a bad person. I can't believe I've done this. And one of the other interns, he's like, it's okay. FDR would understand because he was disabled. And I'm like, wait, what does that, what? It's something, he would understand that I peed in the bushes behind his memorial because he was disabled. I'm like, no, I don't think he would. This is like sacrilege. But yeah, it was funny. And that like still when we see each other on Facebook, like, remember what you did at the FDR memorial? I'm like, don't make me remember that. But yeah, you have all these wonderful quotes on the MLK memorial. So just kind of skim through them and see which would be like your favorite. And so for prayer, I was going to have you put in the Pear Deck which one you like the best and why. So let me go ahead and start the lesson. Move this other computer I have. So go ahead and we'll sign in the Pear Deck. For this one, there's a couple, there's like little quizzy ones, slides, and then there's a couple that ask you some like more open-ended questions. So let me put the code in the chat. Whoops. LPT. Oh, wait, hang on. Oh, so go ahead. I think, did I write that right? Okay. My eyesight is getting worse. Maybe I should actually get the bifocals like the doctor tells me to. Like, I don't want bifocals. They make me feel old. And she's like, you are old. Okay, so please join the Pear Deck. Oh, wait, tell me he's rumbling. Wait, that's the wrong mouse. At home or in class. You got 9, so we're missing some people. What does this do? Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and start it for time's sake. So again, the code's in the chat if you get kicked out or you're a pokey artichoke. So we're still in Unit 1. It's kind of a long unit. And today we're going to talk about justice and charity. We took the survey, so that's done. So for prayer, this is from a longer speech. It was at the Washington National Cathedral, March 31st, 1968. And the title of the speech was Remaining Awake Through a Great Revolution. And it's really beautiful to read in its entirety. And it has some of the most iconic like quotes from Martin Luther King. And the main one is down here. It was the one that President Obama had inscribed on the carpet in the Oval Office. We shall overcome because the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. So I'll read the quote to you, and then there's a place where you can add your own quotes that you like. And then in the background, I'll have to open it up maybe in another tab. I have this song that's a really pretty song to reflect upon. So, but let me read this quote first because I just really like it. Let me put that away so I can see it. So let's begin in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Through our scientific and technological genius, We have made of this world a neighborhood, and yet we have not had the ethical commitment to make of it a brotherhood. But somehow and in some way, we've got to do this. We must all learn to live together as brothers, or we will all perish together as fools. We are tied together in the single garment of destiny, caught in the inescapable work of mutuality. And whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. For some strange reason, I can never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be. And you can never be what you ought to be until I am what I ought to be. This is the way of God's universe is made. This is the way it is structured. John Donne caught it years ago and placed it in graphic terms. No man is an island entire of itself. Every man is a piece of the continent, a part of the main. He goes on toward the end to say, any man's death diminishes me because I'm involved in mankind. Therefore, never send to know for whom the bell tolls. It tolls for thee. We must see this, believe this, and live it, and live by it if we are to remain awake through a great revolution. We're going to win our freedom because both the sacred heritage of our nation and the eternal will of Almighty God are embodied in our echoing demands. And so, however dark it is, however deep the angry feelings are, however violent explosions are, I can still sing, "We shall overcome." We shall overcome because the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. So, yeah, I just love that. And this is kind of from a couple paragraphs that are in the middle of the speech, and then this final line here. Oh, well, there's this, and then there's an ellipsis here, as you can see, an ellipsis here. But yeah, I highly recommend reading the whole thing. I didn't really gain an appreciation for Martin Luther King until I studied him in college. In a class a lot like this, it was in a class called Religion and Social Change, and we did an in-depth study of the ministries of Martin Luther King Jr. and also Malcolm X. Yeah, it wasn't until then that I really learned to appreciate both men. So for the warm-up, again, and if there's a quote you like from MLK that isn't in the list, but I gave you this list because he was an amazing writer. Like just in that little piece I read you, his use of imagery and metaphor and allusion is really good. So you guys can put the quotes that are most inspiring to you, and maybe just a bit why. And then I have my song. Let me bring it up in a different tab. Let's see. Go back to the paradox. So let's take a look at some of your responses. Darkness cannot drive out darkness, only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that. I like this quote because it shows love is always the answer. This is my favorite because it shows how only light, love, and happiness can heal and drive out hate, darkness, and sorrow. That quote stands out. So you guys are kind of, everyone really likes that one. This quote stands out to me because we cannot fight wars with more fighting, only peace. When we know this is true, we can understand that we have to conquer the bad with the good to understand. We have to have the bad moments to understand the good. Understanding can lead to happiness. You can't cancel out the bad and have only the good. Yeah, so she's looking at the juxtaposition of the good and the bad and why they're both necessary in relationship to each other. This really relates to how life can be difficult and how we should go about understanding our experiences. Hate can, I think is really powerful, and it still applies to today's time. It's not going to do any good if we try to combat hate with more hate. Love and respect is the only way to progress for a peaceful society. Inspires me to think. Okay, here's a different one. I believe that unarmed truth and unconditional love will have the final word in reality. This is why right, temporarily defeated, is stronger than evil triumphant. I like this quote because it reassures us in the end that truth and love wins out. Let's see. So this one, we shall overcome because the arc of the moral universe is long and it bends towards justice. I know you use this for prayer, but I think it's super applicable to the current times. It speaks to the idea that our moral standards as a society are not perfect, but they are bending in the correct direction. The BLM movement this summer spoke to this idea that our society has a lot of room for improvement. Yeah, I like this one because it recognizes that we're not there yet, but there's a hopefulness to it. That, you know, because like if you haven't read all of his I Have a Dream speech, Martin Luther King talks a lot about the kingdom. And for Christians, the kingdom of God is right now, but not yet. And one of the images, if you remember studying the images of the church your sophomore year, one of the images of the church is the pilgrim people, that we're on our way, but we're not there yet. And so it's a call to action and to continue building the kingdom, but to also not give up hope that we're not there yet, because it's not finished. We need to keep working toward it. So the darkness quote supports to love everyone because that will make the world a better place. Oh, here's a different one. True peace is not merely the absence of tension, it is the presence of justice. I feel like this is so true because if nothing is solved, then you're just sitting in this weird space. Yeah. Yeah, it's, you know, it's not just the absence of tension. We have to have real justice. And that's what we're going to talk about today, justice. Okay, here's a new one. Out of the mountain of hope, out of the mountain of despair, a stone of hope. And again, see how King in his writing, he has a lot of imagery. He uses that sort of like juxtaposition of ideas beautifully. Throughout this tough time, a lot of people feel hopeless and alone. This quote reminds me that all it takes is a little hope to get through it. Let's see, here's another new one that wasn't before. Let's see, we are determined here in Montgomery to work and fight until justice runs down like water and righteousness like a mighty stream. I love how he describes justice and righteousness as water in a stream. And of course, the place he got that imagery from is from the prophets. I think it's in the prophet, I want to say Micah. Let me see if I can find it. Oh my, I want to say is it Micah? Hang on, let me see if I can find it real quick. Obadiah, Micah, where did you go? Malachi. Micah, you are so hard to find all the time. Hang on, I'm looking in my Bible. Where did he go? Habakkuk, I think he's by Habakkuk. Dang it, I get in the habit to turn pages, I lick my fingers, and you can't really do that in a mask. Dang it, where does that Micah go? Malachi, I don't want Malachi. Shoot. Oh, maybe I should use my table of contents like a smart person. I have tabs in my Bible. 1478, let's see. 14. Oh, it's because I put the tab in wrong. No wonder I can never find it. What a butthead. Let me see if it's in Micah. If I had my other old Bible, I already had a tab in it. No. Well, maybe I'll find it later and I'll write that down for you. But yeah, that's from the prophets. Yeah, I like this quote because it shows that to fight for anything, you must never give up. It also was really powerful that he said to fight for justice until it rains down like water. Yeah, that imagery. Here's a new one. If we are to have peace on earth, our loyalties must become ecumenical rather than sectional. Our loyalties must transcend our race, our tribe, our class, our nation. And this means we must develop a world perspective. I feel this is something the world needs to hear, especially right now. Yeah, the idea of not, you know, separating into tribes or whatever, but to come in together. Justice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. So we have that quote again. We have to have good and bad in our life because it's how we learn from our mistakes. If we never do anything wrong, we'll never learn how to make it better. Okay, yes, so this quote again. The world seems so divided right now, and it seems that it's always fighting, and that public figures aren't trying to find peace, only to be seen as right. So yeah, this is a good quote for our time and our circumstance. The mountain of despair. I like this quote because I think it really applies to us right now. So much has happened this last year, and it is hope that is going to get us through. Yeah. And so we see in Martin Luther King the great like double-sided coin of looking at ourselves critically and seeing that we still have work to do, but also not giving up hope, not to let, again, the situation we're in become this mountain of despair, as he says. And I'd encourage you, like next year when you're in Zurich College, if you get a chance to take a class on Martin Luther King and get to really read his writings and engage with them, I'd highly recommend it, because when I was in high school, I think I always, like, I knew who he was, but I kind of thought of him, I don't know, how do you describe it? Like, oh, okay, George Washington, or, you know, Thomas Jefferson, Martin Luther King, like these ancient guys in the past or something. But when I actually read his writings, they were just like, I don't know, just changed the way I viewed him. I viewed him like, I don't know, he's just an amazing writer. You just gotta, you have to read more of him if you haven't read him much. Okay, so that was our little video. So the learning objectives for this lesson is we'll review justice, charity, the common good, and social sin. We'll understand the three elements of the common good, explain what's meant by social sin. That's review. I think we talked about that last semester. Explore why and how justice and charity need to work together for the good of society. So first, justice in the common good. So justice aims to the common good of society. So what, and we talked a little bit about the common good when we looked at subsidiarity. But what are, if you guys could put in the Pear Deck, what are some examples of things that would fall under the common good? Let's see. I'm going to start looking at your responses. Oh, you're still working on it. Huh, that's weird. Maybe. Okay, let's see. Helping others, providing for, maybe she's still thinking, food, shelter, water. They're still working. Saying thank you to someone if they hold the door open for you. Okay, you guys are still thinking. Let me give you some more time. So again, let me go back. What are some examples of things that you guys think would fall under the common good? Bless you. Okay, providing for others, giving back, food, clothing, shelter. Everyone in the community having food, shelter, a source of income, clothing, law enforcement that provides peace and protection. Helping others. She's still thinking. So yeah, some of you guys are still thinking. Making the world, actions to make the world a better place. Delivering dinner or goods to homeless shelters. This is good because you're actually starting to identify different works of charity and justice. Something that benefits all and keeps all safe. So she's identified that the common good has a social dimension, volunteering with the community, feeding the homeless, community service, giving food to people who experience homelessness. Okay, helping others. Okay, so let's review. So this you should have read in the reading. But the three elements that are essential for establishing the common good are the respect for life and dignity of all persons. So we looked at that topic last semester. Ultimately, all Catholic moral and social teaching is based on this idea. And remember, let me annotate. I don't know what color would be good. So this is the basis of all Catholic social and moral thought. And again, it's based in the natural law. So the first principle of the natural law is do good, avoid evil. And from that, we had those other 7 principles. And the first of the 7 secondary principles was that all life has equal value. And since this is comes to us from the natural law, this is a truth that everybody can know. You don't have to be Christian to know this. The second element of the common good is commitment to social well-being and development of the group by meeting the needs of the individual. So this is a big, this is really, oh, poodles. Oh, well, that's okay, I guess. Oh, no, well, whatever. So the well-being of the group, what am I doing? The group by meeting the needs of the individual. So this is another important aspect of Catholic social thought, is that the idea is the way you promote a society is by beginning with persons. So let me see. So the idea here is the principle of the good of the individual is inseparable from the common good. And also the idea that to promote society, we start with the citizens, and we build structures in society that will benefit everyone. So if you guys remember, there was a lesson we did. Hang on, what is that box doing there? Oh, poodles. Okay, so there was a lesson we did in the very beginning. I think it was the first week of school, and you filled out a little Google form. You watched a video on subsidiarity, and then you filled out this little Google form. Over the weekend, I had misplaced the Google form, and so I couldn't read the answers because I couldn't find it. And then I found it, and I read all the answers, and I graded all of them. But when I set it up, I didn't set it up to record the name of who did what. So I graded them all, but I can't enter the grades in the gradebook because they're not identified. And I was like, oh my gosh. But the principle of subsidiarity is the idea that we should always start with the grassroots. And we see this same idea in the notion of the common good, that we begin with individual persons, and the purpose of government and the structures of society is to promote the common good by meeting the needs of individuals. And when we do that, it benefits everybody because we're all connected. So for example, something that would promote the common good and the development of the group is providing education. So one of the reasons the government promotes public education is because it's good for every individual to be educated, but then it also helps develop us as a society. And then the third principle of the common good is the establishment of a peaceful and just society. And what we're going to look at next is, well, what do we mean by a just society? What does justice mean? So let me save those. And let's see. Okay, so social sin, we talked about this first semester, and actually when we look at justice, anytime we look at structures in society that are unjust, it's usually because of social sin. So social sin is the effect that every personal sin has on others, sin that violates freedom and the dignity and rights of others. It's the collective effect of such sins, which can affect society and its institutions to create structures of sin. So some keywords there are wait, what? Hang on. Sorry, I wish this, wait, does this have can I write on this screen? In my other room, I can't. Maybe this one's different. Can I? No, it's not touch screen. That doesn't help me. All right, so institutions and structures of sin. So can you guys think of some examples of social sin that would fit the definition? So what are some sins that individuals, that happen on an individual level that become structures of society? So let's see if you guys can think of any. So something that might help, let me put a note here. So think of, this would include attitudes, actions, and structures that foster unjust treatment. And remember, simply stated, justice is just to give people what they're due, what they ought to have. So what are some examples of social sin in our society? Let's see. Okay, we're getting some. Let's see. Oh, I got that. Hang on, let me go back. Whoops, sorry guys. Oh. Let me just clear that out of there. There we go. So she was still working on her idea. A social sin would be birth control. It's interesting. It's definitely a personal sin from a Catholic perspective. Yeah, I'd have to think about that one more. It's definitely a personal sin. I'm not sure, because the church's teaching on birth control really only applies to baptized Catholics. And since we would argue our teachings are true, it would be best if no one used birth control. However, the regulations on that are really only apply to baptized Catholics, but I'd have to think about that one more. Yeah, abortion, we would say, is a structure of sin. Would be an example of a social sin because it violates the respect and dignity for the life of the unborn. Can affect society because there are many abortion clinics that make abortion easily possible. And this is one of your book points this one out, that we would see structures in our government that that help pay for and support abortion would be an example of a social sin because we have these structures in our society and in our law, like the different abortion laws that create a structure that takes the life of innocent human beings. Social sin would be drug abuse. This is an example, fits the definition because someone's abusing drugs can affect the family and create problems for the future. Yeah, I think that's a good one. I think it's one we don't think about a lot. And looking at one thing, I don't know if we'll have time to look at it, but one question of justice that's often debated is what's the proper punishment for a drug addict? And that would look at, are we creating structures in our criminal system that perpetuate a problem of drug abuse? And then she also points out that like it really affects the family members too and the whole community, because when people are on drugs, they can't support themselves, they can't support their families, and then that's when a lot of family members have to maybe reach out for social services and stuff. Racism, yes, racism is one of the easiest structures of sin to recognize. And remember, when we talk about social sin, we talk about how the whole society sets up structures to support this. So think about in the United States, slavery was a structure. We ended slavery, but then we had in the South segregation, and we ended that. But then we continue to have issues with redlining and Black folks not being able to vote because they have to give ID, or anybody of color. Different. We'll look at those, but yeah, racism is a big one. Yeah, separating people by gender and race in systems in public schools. Yeah, I guess, yeah, that would be one, like segregation. This is an interesting one. Not respecting someone's right to free speech when their opinion differs from yours. So have we set up a society that allows for a discussion without just silencing other people? So we talked about cancel culture the other day, and freedom of speech is like a very important American ideal that promotes justice. So as a society, we have to look at this. This is like right in the forefront, because President Trump was deplatformed, is that the way they call it, by Twitter, but Twitter's a private company. So it's like the question becomes, as a society, how should we deal with this? That's a good question. I don't have an answer yet. This is the question of your time, right? You guys are going to go off to college and have to figure this one out for us, right? So over-sexualizing people, especially women, in the media and movies is a social sin. It disrespects the body and brings the idea of sex outside of marriage. It also affects how women view men and how women measure their self-worth. Yeah, so we saw this in the hashtag Me Too movement, right? So we have these whole structures in Hollywood where you had, I guess the most egregious example was Harvey Weinstein, where women were being raped or not getting roles because they wouldn't give sexual favor. So we do have sexist structures in society. Also, look at how a lot of women make less than their male peers. That's a structure in our society that we have to really look at. Women have come a long way, but we can always ask what do we need to change to make society more just for women? Excessive wealth, yeah. So we can look at structures that maybe promote the wealthy to get richer while creating situations where the poor get poorer. Addiction, whether it's to drugs, because God is abusing the free will God has given us. Yeah, I would say drugs are would be a social sin that we're still struggling to grapple with. Substance abuse, polluting the environment. Yeah, that's just, we have structures of sin where it's caused like pollution. Although having grown up in Southern California in the 80s and now like seeing how much better the air got, that's an example of how we can use the structures of society, not just in a negative, but a positive. When I was a little kid, there were so many times where I would we wouldn't be able to go to recess because the air would be so bad, they didn't want us breathing it. And because of people using government to promote the common good of a clean environment, I've seen personally a lot of change in that area. It's been really neat. Like my daughters, like they didn't even know what acid rain was. I'm like, you don't know what acid rain was? That was like, we were always worried about acid rain. Unequal pay, to race, gender, or sexuality, separating people, being racist. Okay, good. So we definitely, you guys can see those structures. Oh, very good one. Sorry, I talk too much. I just talk too much. Okay, so the 2 feet of Catholic social justice are justice and charity. So justice is giving others their due. It involves working for systems, and that's like the key word there. Again, justice is all about the systems that uphold human rights and the responsibilities to the common good. And then charity is the love of God and neighbor for their own sake. And it involves helping and being concerned for those in need. Your book actually had a really poetic way of saying it. In your book, they wrote, where was it? Hang on. Oh, shoot. Where did it go? Oh, it says, charity requires that you have a loving gaze toward the poor that compels you to give food to the hungry, drink to the thirsty, and clothing to the naked. So that's from Matthew 25. But I like that idea. Charity requires you to have a loving gaze toward the poor. Because so many times when I get off the freeway and there's someone there begging, I don't want to make eye contact. But this is telling me, make eye contact, have a loving gaze. So let's look further at this. So in this little parable, try to identify what actions of the carpenter address the effects of the problem. So that's kind of what charity focuses on, is the effects of structures of sin. And what actions of the carpenter address the source of the problem? Because that's justice is usually about asking the big why questions. That's why it's so hard to do. So let's take a look at this little story.
There was once a carpenter that lived by a river in the village near you. Every day, with his trusty hammer, he built boats out of wood. One day, as the carpenter was working, he looked out onto the river and saw a child trying to swim towards the shore. "Help," said the child. "The current is too strong." So the carpenter grabbed a boat and rescued the child. "How did you get into the river?" asked the carpenter. "I fell in upstream," said the child. The next day, when the carpenter looked out onto the river, he saw 2 children struggling to swim towards the shore. "Help," the children said. The carpenter called out to another villager, and together they rescued the children. But the next day, there were 5 children, and the next day there were 12, and soon the whole village was busy rescuing children from the river. The villagers grew weary, and some of the boats started to leak and break from overuse. The carpenter worked tirelessly to repair them, but as the number of children in the river grew, soon there weren't even enough boats to get the job done. One day, the carpenter asked himself a question. Why and how are so many children falling into the river in the first place? So he bravely ran upstream to find out. There, he saw a big, windy village with many houses, and some of the houses were in a state of disrepair. And when the wind blew especially hard, the houses creaked and cracked, and things were swept out of them and into the nearby river. Sometimes what was swept up was children. The carpenter saw an old lady walking by. "Excuse me," he said to the old lady, "tell me, why are these houses so broken down? Why aren't these houses stronger?" The people of this village want to fix these houses so that they can resist the wind, the old lady replied. But we do not have the tools to do so, and the wind lately has been especially strong. I can help, said the carpenter.
Aha!
And with the help of the old lady, he gathered the villagers, gave them his hammer, and taught them how to use it, so that they could learn to make their houses strong when the wind blew especially hard, and keep their children from falling into the river.
Yay!
Because you see, if we make the effort to go upstream and help build strong foundations there, we won't need to work so hard to rescue children downstream.
Right. So, and this is actually actually a ad for a child abuse, but in the little parable, what actions of the carpenter address the effects of the problem? Yeah.
Wasn't it like he was rescuing the children and then like building more boats to go rescue them?
Right. So the Emma said rescuing the children and building the boats, and then what actions of the carpenter address the source of the problem?
He built the home.
Yeah.
So they wouldn't go over.
Yeah. So then they went upstream, found the source of all the kids getting stuck in the river, and they gave them the tools they needed to repair their houses. So another parable that is very similar to this is that expression, if you give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. If you teach a man to fish, he'll eat for a lifetime. So that's the way justice and charity go together in Catholic social justice teaching. Charity works with the effects. Like, okay, these kids are in the river, we got to get them out of the river. But justice goes to the source of the problem. Why are they in the river? Or why do we have so much homelessness? Like I heard on the news this morning that they're trying to make little houses for the homeless in Sacramento. That's an act of charity. It's solving the immediate need. But the act of justice would be to ask the question, why are there so many homeless people in Sacramento? And you can see that that's a hard question to answer. And it's very hard to do the work of justice because oftentimes you'll start, but you never see the fruits of your labor. Like think about Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, who are both assassinated working for racial justice. So it's really hard to do that. And that's why people get burnt out. So, that's what I just said. Justice endeavors to address the source of problems. Charity addresses those direct needs that result from injustices. And so notice in practice, justice and charity are intertwined and inseparable. We need both. Just like with subsidiarity, which starts with the grassroots and helping people on the local level, pairs with solidarity, because you have to first identify the needs, like they did it in that video of the hurricane or the typhoon in the Philippines. Caritas International found the needs, then they worked with the larger governmental structures to help rebuild. So we have 5 minutes, right? So this is just like a little quiz thingy. Choose the best option. Volunteering to serve meals at a soup kitchen. Would that be an example of justice or charity? Let's take a look. Good, charity. Got that. Donating clothing and children's items to a women's crisis shelter. Is that justice or charity? Yeah, that would be charity because it's not addressing the need of why the women are in crisis. It's directly helping them with their immediate needs. Voting for a proposition that enacts stricter penalties on cities and counties for failure to ensure water systems deliver potable, that means drinkable water. So would that be justice or charity? Yeah. I hope someone will research that whole thing in Flint. I want to learn more about that because I don't know a lot about it, but that is like, geez, oh man, with those poor people drinking that terrible water. Oh man. Yeah, so this would be an act of justice because you're trying to change the structures that led to the problem through the government. Tutoring a low-income children in math. Yeah, that would be an act of charity. Again, it's meeting a direct need. Writing a letter to your state representative voicing opposition to the death penalty. So would that be justice or charity? So I have 4 minutes. Yeah, that's a work of justice. And again, it's aimed at trying to change the whole structure of society, and asking the question of, do we want to have a society that uses capital punishment? And shoveling an elderly neighbor's driveway after a snowstorm. Whoops. Yeah, that would be charity. Good. Oh, okay, dudes, I was watching a commercial for like a car last night, and in the car, the woman is driving and the rest of the family is singing in a song. Do you remember this song from like 2012? It's Raining Tacos. I don't have time to play it. We'll have to play it next time. But like, I was like, dude, car commercial, like 2012, nobody's listening to Raining Tacos anymore, unless it had like a comeback. But oh my gosh, my kids with this song constantly. It's like the baby fish of their generation. Well, you guys are almost, I don't know. I love the song. We'll have to watch it some other time. But real quick, just to finish up, just to think about what would be a work of justice that would address the needs that the soup kitchen serves. So a soup kitchen is an act of charity. What would be a work of justice that would kind of look at the source of that problem? Any ideas? Let me see. Okay, so figuring out why people are needing food. Is it homelessness? If so, find jobs so they could provide for themselves. Have the government donate more. Let's see. Oh, you could write a letter to the government, seeing why the people are needing the food. Having the government donate more. Establish programs. Okay. Yeah, so you're getting the idea. And one of the things we'll look at, I don't think I've talked enough about the principle of subsidiarity. It's kind of a governing principle in how Catholics approach working for justice. And the whole idea is you should always start like at the grassroots, at the most local level. So asking the question, in a community, you know, why is there homelessness, but not always just jumping to the government to like solve the problem, but looking in the community and saying, well, let's start here. You know, what are the needs in, say, Roseville? And where can private citizens help out? So like at my church, they have the whole social justice committee, and individuals can donate, right, to solve the problems. And then also ask the questions like, where do we need the government to come in, where private individuals or smaller groups don't have the tools necessary to solve the problem. But one of the things in Catholic social thought is to always ask the question, how can I love my neighbor so that we don't have to rely on the government for everything? Because it's easy to always look to the government, but there's a lot we can do just for each other. So it is time to go. And there was just a couple more questions that were asking the same question we just did. But just remember, there is a reading assignment. Let me just click through. There it is. 37 through 42 in your book. And we'll go over that at the beginning of next class, but there's no other homework. Sound good? Okay. Thanks, guys. I'll see you next time. Bye, Zoomers. I'll see you next time. Bye. Have a good day. I'll see you next time.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye. Have a good day.